This is Donnie. Donnie has been creating his MMORPG game alone in complete isolation for years. He is expecting it to bring him millions of dollars. It's his baby, and no one can criticize it. He's so attached to his project that he can't imagine lowly plebeians telling him how to make his game. Although, when Donnie releases his game, no one seems to like it, and it's incredibly buggy. It was optimized for him, and no one else can enjoy his masterpiece. It's too late to pivot, and Donnie has spent 4 years of his life making something that no one seems to like. Donnie kept the game to himself, so please don't be like Donnie. This is a scary thought, and the only rectifying action you can make is to playtest your game. Playtesting is a necessity, and while you can do a lot of it yourself, it's important that you get the feedback and carefully observe how other people play your game. Recently, we at Voyager Studio had a live playtesting session at one of our local universities. We had about 5 setups that people could play, and booked out a computer lab for a couple of hours with some flyers on the wall. We ran a testing session and got some great feedback. About 20 people came by, which isn't a crazy amount of testers, but it gives us some great consensus of how our game is going. People that don't play video games to people that play them every day came and tested our level. This range was a great way to gauge how intuitive our game was, and as well as whether it was challenging to veterans and not so overwhelming for non-gamers. So the first step is to find a venue. The venue doesn't have to be special. Universities are often a great place as they have some equipment, but you can also consider libraries with computer setups or host an online session. There are also professional services that reach out to players to test your game for you. This can be a great resource if you need a large sample of players or if you're just needing to test lots of different things. Now, we highly recommend that you do some marketing for your playtest. Usually the venue might have some social media, or you can put up some flyers like we did around the campus. If you do create flyers, ensure that the time, date, and location is accurate and very easy to read. Also, try to find a way that makes them stand out using bright colors or things that fit the theme of your game. We made this one that accurately fits the theme of Miszou and displayed some of the concept art to catch people's eyes. Also, to create a little incentive for the students to come by, we spoke to the institution and were actually able to get points for their assignments too, so this little playtest was valuable to them just as it was valuable to us. So once your flyers are done, print out as many copies as you think you need. For us it was only 5, and we hung them out strategically. We used our level design chops to guide the player to the room, and they can be seen at all times. In our case, it was 1 in the entrance, 3 down the corridor, and 1 next to the exact location. So step 2 would be to create a survey. A survey is the best way to get consistent results from your players and helps to focus their feedback on what you're actually interested in. This survey should be concise and ask the right questions, as feedback can be too general or too specific. If you don't specify what you're trying to test the players on, they will give you unwanted feedback and you'll get some responses that aren't really helpful. Some examples of questions we found got the best response were: was the camera positioning comfortable? Was the game challenging, overwhelming, or too easy? Was there anything you wanted to do in the game but couldn't do? Was the level too long, too short, or just right? And this one's more specific to our game, but did you feel a state of flow? These questions gave some fantastic feedback and gave us so much more to work on and change. Something to consider in your survey that we decided not to do is to add a portion with an NDA agreement. This is probably more for larger companies, and we decided that ultimately word of mouth is better for us, and that keeping a secret forever is not going to change the way our game is made, but that discretion is up to you. If you choose to use a service, I would further consider some kind of NDA agreement just to keep you safe. So step 3 would be to design the right level. The focus of your level can be on level design, the controls, maybe the map. It's a good idea to also have a controller input logger if you're using that, so you can see exactly what players are pressing, and this was crucial for us. One of the biggest problems that we found was players were pressing X or A immediately instead of the button that we had it on. So it was abundantly clear that we needed to change the button Go to X or A. When developing a prototype level, the very first step to figure out is the difficulty and design. Think about what the goal of the level is. Is it to test the movement, mechanics, reaction time, difficulty, or something else entirely? In our case, we wanted to move towards creating a level that encompassed the main mechanics of the game, like tricks, general movement, grinding, and jumping, to see if it felt good or clunky. As well as this, we were seeing if the level was too long, too short, or just right. Overall though, we were hoping to understand if the game already in its prototype stage would have a sense of flow, and this was one of the most important parts to Miszou's gameplay. Additionally, think about giving the level a sense of texture, so there's some parts which are easier and less dramatic, followed by areas which increase a player's speed and rise in difficulty. When you're creating a prototype level, make sure that you're testing it out every step of the way to see what works and what doesn't. Be careful though, because eventually you'll be a master at your own level and it might be a little bit too difficult for others. When we were creating our prototype, we also made sure not to add too much art or UI. This made sure that the focus was on the mechanics and how the game feels, and not the pretty text or visual effects. You may even choose to have a tutorial in your level, but we decided not to so that we can see what people's first intuition would be when faced with blindly figuring out the controls. This was a great way to understand if the game was intuitive or not. So once the level is complete and everything is working correctly, you can move on to step 4. So step 4 would be to create a test build and see if everything functions and make sure everything works as it's meant to. If the build is successful and everything seems fine, then that's kind of it. You officially have a game prototype ready to go, ready to test. You may want to test the build on another computer system entirely and make sure all of your controllers work. Now, when the day comes, ensure that you have a build on a USB. USBs make things easy to move around onto the computers, at the playtesting site, wherever you want to go. Also have a backup USB just in case the first one doesn't work, or have the build stored on Google Drive or something. Move the build onto the machines, and when the time is ready, welcome all of your playtesters into the room, explain to them the basic gist of what you want them to do, and give them full control over the game. We had a few instances where the players were a little bit too frustrated, so we did let them know how to move through the level a bit and understand what they're doing, but you can bet that we are adjusting that so it's less frustrating. We found that there were some super frustrating parts of our playtest, and it was very insightful to see how people reacted to the game when they pick it up for the first time completely blind. So yeah, that's pretty much how to run a small little game test. So we are a small team and our game test is not with thousands of people, but it's very insightful, and I think anybody should test their game at any point, pretty much as soon as you have some cubes and stuff moving around. We even probably did this a little too late. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that and learned something. We certainly did. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. This is our platform to you. Okay, bye-bye.